Chevrolet, one of the most iconic names in American racing. But what if I told you that the very company celebrated for its racing heritage once pulled off one of the biggest deceptions in NASCAR history? A deception so bold, so carefully engineered, that it nearly broke the sport's credibility. And here's the kicker. The reason it worked wasn't just horsepower or engineering brilliance. It worked because of something inside your own brain, something psychologists today call the dopamine gap. This isn't just a story about cars, it's a story about manipulation, addiction, and how one company used speed to play NASCAR, and all of us. The late 1960s and early 1970s, NASCAR was exploding in popularity. Crowds packed the stands, millions tuned in on television, and manufacturers saw racing as a battlefield. Ford had the GT40 program and muscle on the track. Dodge had unleashed the Charger Daytona with its radical aerodynamic nose and giant rear wing. Plymouth brought the Superbird, another winged warrior built for one thing: domination. Chevrolet, they were losing ground. Their reputation was slipping. And in a sport where winning on Sunday meant selling on Monday, failure wasn't an option. So Chevy did what desperate companies sometimes do. They bent the rules. Chevrolet engineers went underground. In secret facilities away from prying eyes, they developed machines that technically weren't legal. The rules said cars had to be based on production models, cars the public could actually buy. But Chevy blurred that line, creating experimental prototypes that looked like race cars, but never really existed in dealerships. Some were one-off test cars, others were hybrid monsters, mixing parts, engines, and designs that gave them an edge. To the average fan, they looked like ordinary Chevrolets. To NASCAR officials, they looked like compliance. But to rival teams, they looked suspiciously unbeatable. Now you might wonder, how did they get away with it? Why didn't NASCAR crack down immediately? When you watch a race car fly down the track at 200 miles per hour, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of reward, of excitement. It's the same rush you get from scrolling social media, from a cliffhanger ending, from a jackpot machine, but here's the catch. After that high, dopamine doesn't just return to normal, it dips. You feel empty, restless, even unsatisfied. Scientists call this the dopamine gap, and what do you do in that gap? You crave more. Chevrolet knew this. Their secret cars weren't just about winning races. They were about giving fans a bigger dopamine spike, more speed, more drama, more spectacle. And the bigger the spike, the bigger the crash. That crash pulled fans deeper into the sport, desperate for the next race, the next secret. In other words, Chevrolet didn't just cheat NASCAR, they hacked our brains. But lies don't stay buried forever. Rivals began to whisper. Drivers noticed details that didn't add up. A car that shouldn't be that fast, suddenly leaving legends in the dust. A model that wasn't even sold to the public, somehow tearing up the track. Ford and Dodge teams accused Chevrolet of bending, even breaking NASCAR's sacred production rules. Fans who adored Chevrolet's victories suddenly felt betrayed. Had they been cheering for frauds? Had their excitement been manufactured like the cars themselves? NASCAR couldn't ignore it any longer. If the sport became a playground for phantom cars, fans would lose trust. And if fans lost trust, NASCAR would crumble. So the organization rewrote the rulebook. New rules demanded proof. Real production numbers, real cars available to the public. No more secret prototypes, no more ghost machines. Chevrolet was forced into a corner, build legitimate production cars or get off the track. And with that crackdown, the era of the secret Chevys came to an end. But the damage, and the legend, was already written into NASCAR's history. Chevrolet's secret cars may be gone, but their impact remains. They represent both the brilliance and the danger of pushing too far. For the fans, it was a roller coaster. The thrill of victory followed by the sting of betrayal. A perfect metaphor for the dopamine gap itself. Highs that felt unbeatable, followed by lows that left you wanting more. And maybe that's the real lesson here. So the next time you feel that rush after watching a race, or the emptiness when it's over, remember this. That's the dopamine gap pulling you back. It's the same psychological trick Chevrolet once used to keep fans hooked. Long before most of us even knew the word dopamine. And if you think this story was shocking, wait until you hear what Ford once tried to pull on NASCAR. That story might be even crazier.